The final exam was based on the rights of employees or workers, and I don't know if it was for the entire world or just here in the United States, but a lot of changes has happened in the last century or last 30 years. Globalization has taken on a different form because if you really look at it, globalization has always been around. I mean, from the time that the Italians in Florence set out to go to East to make trade, where the Romans set out all over the world to conquer the known world at the time, whatever they brought back, they made businesses. So globalization has been around since man was able to enact the trading business. So to say that, oh, this is new, no, it's not new. It's just taken a different form, a much more rapid form because of technology and the cost effect of doing business now. We do business on microseconds. We don't do business on large scales where it takes us months to get business transactions to get completed because the ship has to travel to the other side of the world, bring back notice, pick up the owner and take it back to the other side of the world. Now it's done in seconds. Fax, internet connections, text, email, bam, business done. Orders put in, orders done. Information is just zooming by. So globalization has changed, the way we do business in the world now. But to say that globalization is new, that's being ignorant to the fact. Another thing is the protection of the workers. I don't know if it was based on just the United States or the world. I'm going to start with a little bit of the world. The what I think about the protection of workers around the world is diminishing. It's disappearing. Some states are doing it, countries are doing it to look good as proudful nations or nations that care about their populace. Others are just abusing, like in China, where the corporations for Apple has 700,000 people working for them, and in rigorous and very unhealthy situations. People, you're talking about 700,000. That's the size of a city anywhere in the United States. 700,000 people are employed in these areas. And not only in this area, they have to pay for their own food. They pay for their lodging, but the lodging is provided by the employer. And it's, hostility everywhere they turn, production. They don't care about, and they don't compensate the employees. So the protection outside the United States, depending on what part of the world we're talking about, is very, very limited, very limited, or even none. Now we're traveling back to the United States. I'm going to concentrate on that, which I have more knowledge due to the fact that I've had experiences in the workplaces. I've worked with unions, non-union states, union states. And the biggest problem in the United States that we have now and the rights for workers is the unions, the disappearing of the American unions. The unions struggled for many, many years in the early stages of them becoming large unions in the early 1900s. They went through almost war with local governments and even federal government until the employers unified and became one voice. And this is what pushed back the employers, because in the early 1900s, the government, this country was growing. It was brand new. We just got out of a civil war that left us really bad in the financial red. So the government says, we'll leave corporations alone, businesses alone. They know what they're doing, and we'll institute a capitalism system. Well, if you learn history, capitalism doesn't work if it's not regulated. And if it's regulated, it's not capitalism anymore. It becomes a little bit of socialism, democracy, and a little bit of communism altogether. That is the perfect brew. And it was observed, and it's proven from the establishment of unions to the disappearing of unions. This country was prosperous in the 1900s, in the early 1900s, when unions started taking over and pushing up and they unionized almost half of every employee in the United States. They actually made it better for the country. The country was prospering, corporations were making money, and yet corporations were still paying 50% taxes on every profit. 50%, people. Now they're paying less than 20, and they're saying that they're not profitable. It's a lie. They're lying, plain simple. But back to the protection. Now we're seeing the diminishing of these unions, and more accidents are happening at work because safety issues are not being dealt with. They're being overlooked by companies because it costs money to instill safety. And since there's no representatives for these employers, no one brings it to their attention or even holds them to that standards. It's so bad that even the FDA and OSHA and all that, they had 2,000 to 5,000 employees in those offices. FDA has less than 50 people working for them. Because the government, when they deregulated during the Reagan years, they said, you know what, Tyson Chicken or the paint, Sherwin-Williams, you know what, since I know you deal with chemicals, you regulate yourself. It sounds much better. I know you're going to do the right thing and all that. That's what the government stated. When unions went crazy, they're like, are you crazy? We can't let these corporations to their own devices to regulate safety, and that's why we have all these food poisoning and all these food problems that we're having now, because the FDA doesn't have enough manpower to regulate all these commercial food processing plants and food productions. They don't have the manpower because you as Americans have decided for less government and let the bad people regulate themselves. So that's what I have concentrated for what I took in from the reading or from the final exam, that we're trading freedom, or a misunderstanding of freedom, for lesser government, because we think the government is the bad people, and the government is not. The government is the people. These corporations are for themselves. Their bottom line is profit. They got shareholders that they have to satisfy, an owner that has to fill his pockets to keep up with his status of being a billionaire, millionaire, wherever he finds himself. And they don't care about the people on the production floor. That's why the income gap is growing, because they're leaving us behind because they don't want to deal with us. So our protections are dwindling to almost becoming zilch. More people in the state of Florida are not paid overtime. They're not covered under certain benefits, or not being enforced, because Florida is a right to work state. Unions have no power here. The employee has no power here. The employer could walk in tomorrow and start firing people at will. And all he has to state is, I can't afford it. That's his only reason. He doesn't have to do anything other than that. And more than likely, the employees that are fired wouldn't know where to go to get representation anyway, because we have the least educated employees in the world. They have no consciousness of what those letters that they put in your locker room, in the workroom, in the lunchroom, about safety, about regulations from the federal government. They have no idea. So that's what I came away with it, and I hope you understand and you change everything that's going on. Thank you.